Hey guys, welcome back to Where in Warcraft. Um, pretty long time since we've had a video like that. Um, yeah. I just kind of wanted to record something chill. Um, I had a couple more episodes of this, but I think those are going to be lost to time because it feels weird putting out Warcraft content given the horrific allegations that and I say allegations, but I mean that only legally, like the horrific things that have happened at Blizzard during the creation of this game. It's kind of put a damper on the fun of casually enjoying this heavily flawed but very dear to my heart game. I'm talking about World of Warcraft, not Where in Warcraft. Where in Warcraft is a recent interest of mine. I just really like it. But yeah. So I feel like putting out recordings, as harmless as they might be, where, you know, in a pre-lawsuit world is just, I don't know, doesn't feel right. So I believe what was I going to say? I just think that it's better to, since it's been so long, just record a fresh one, you know? So the last episode we did was retail. So we're gonna do classic today. Or maybe we'll do retail. I don't know. This might surprise you because I hate the game as it is now, but like gameplay wise, but I'm kind of in a retail mood today. So I think we're gonna actually do that. Yeah. I watched a couple of videos on World of Warcraft today, which were the first ones that I have watched, you know, since the news broke. Just like, I've been taking a break, you know? Leaves like a bad taste in my mouth. I was going to unsub, even if temporarily, but currently my dad and I... Don't tell Blizzard. Technically my dad and I kind of share an account, and so he helps me pay for it in exchange for, like, you know, World of Warcraft. My dad's not too keen on the game either these days, actually. But I don't know. I phase in and out on whether or not I feel disgusted and annoyed. I think it's like here, right? Yeah. But yeah, this is a really important game to me, and so kind of sucks to have to reckon with a moral decision like this, you know? Which, honestly, it's not on me to enforce basic human decency in the companies that I patronize. But I am patronizing the company, you know? So it does just feel a little strange. Yo! Round 3. They've got me. Might be a short video today, folks. Um, Something a couple of burning forests in the world. This confirms it. This is the one in Northrend. So, yeah. I figured today I'd just kind of not just talk about the lawsuit, because that's really a bummer. And I don't mean that like for me, just like, you know, there's people far more qualified to talk about it than I, and I've been very public about my opinion of it, although I acknowledge that not everybody follows me on Twitter. That sounded like a total jab. That wasn't what I meant. So this is interesting. One's instinct might want to say Bilgewater Harbor, but these trees give me pause, and the skybox as well. Because Ashara is many things, but it is not green, nor is it coniferous. I don't think it is. Huh. What kind of trees are in Ashara? Regardless, I think this is some bullshit that I'm not familiar with. The sky in particular gives me pause. This is an HDS skybox that would never appear in the old world. Possibly Broken Isles. But I'm not certain of that. I think I recognize that skybox from Pandaria, actually. Which, yeah. I'm so terminally World of Warcrafted that I recognize skyboxes, but I promise I'm not as pathetic as you think. Because I'm not entirely sure if this is true or not. This is a Zandalari ship, I believe. It's fascinating to me how every expansion up till BFA that the Zandalari were involved, which would be Classic, Cataclysm, and Mists of Pandaria, obviously, where we are right now, they have this kind of tribal vibe. But then you get to their city and their ships are like made out of gold, which is like way cooler. And I wish retroactively, you know, that had been the case forever. But then it's like, yeah, but that's a kind of an incurious mind way to think about it. So let's try and justify the lore for the devs. What's up with this weird primitive shit that we've been seeing? Was this like fleet of Zandalari ships either a sort of stripped down version of the actual Navy, just because they're like emissaries and scouts to Pandaria and Stranglethorn? Or, and this one's a little more absurd, but I think I like it kind of more, is this just like a really old platoon and they like upgraded recently? Like these ships have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and only in the past couple of centuries did they upgrade to like Golden Fleet Armada ship and such. Who's to know? I don't think it's in Pandaria. Let me... Wait. Always check the timeless IO. I'm watching you, bitch. Okay. Well, let's think about it in a different way. What regions have coniferous forests? The hinterlands. There seems to be a distinct lack of goblin infrastructure, though. We could, of course, go against our instincts and just head on over to Bilgewater Harbor. But again, the location that we see here, that's some HD grass. Not only that, that's an HD skybox. Some HD ass, 3D ass grass. And those trees are a little more uncertain. And I don't think it's Draenor. It might be. We can check. But I don't think it's Draenor. Yeah. Yeah, not really. No. Not at all, in fact. Unless there is goblin stuff down here, but there's no goblin stuff off the coast, which is an important distinction. Now, we could perhaps argue that somewhere in Kultiris, I feel like I would have seen it, since this is the most recent expansion, and I was doomed to very many daily quests while I was keeping up with it. Honestly, the concept of that makes me both want to get back into Shadowlands and try and keep up again, and it also makes me want to totally give up. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to give up because the last time I gave up on an expansion, Mists of Pandaria, I'm still catching up on lore to this day. I still have no fucking clue what happened in some of those zones. But at the same time, it's like, am I really gonna let this game, like, hold me hostage? And the answer is that indecision is in itself an answer. So, yeah, I'm gonna miss out whether I make the decision to miss out or whether I don't make a decision. So the only other outcome is to make the decision not to miss out. So I've got a 2/3 chance of missing out. Here's something, but that's just a boat. Guys, I don't want to have 2 strikes on round 5. That's absurd. That's outrageous. We don't want to do that. Northrend's got a lot of pine trees, but this is post-Cataclysm goblin infrastructure. Those look like old world trees. I don't think those are like HD new trees. I think this is like a Cataclysm zone. Ooh! 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 Is it... Krasworks. Man. I've only done the Alliance quests in Twilight Highlands. I don't know, it was always the least appealing zone to me in the, maybe not the least. I wasn't a big fan of Hyjal, visually. And I was a huge fan of Uldum, or Uldum, but the quests there are really boring. Uldum is not a finished zone. God bless them. Wow. That was a tricky one. And this one is not. Instant. Ambermill. You know it. So yeah, I won't go into detail about like the allegations and lawsuit and behavior at Blizzard, because you can look that up for yourself, and I highly encourage you to do that, and to if you want to follow the progress on how the employees of Blizzard are, you know, protesting and demanding like better treatment, then I would follow at a better ABK. I'll put it up on the screen like here. Yeah, I recommend following that account, because that is a, I'm sorry, I just like punched the desk. That is a worker-led coalition that was created in the aftermath of these events, and has been making strides to preemptively they've been making strides to preemptively sort of cut off any anti-coordination efforts that the higher-ups might try and pull. They've already hired a union-busting firm, which is bad. But again, the employees have banded together to say, hey, fuck off. We don't want that. So it's easy to be pessimistic, but one has to be realistic if they don't want to get disappointed. So I'm trying to keep a level head about this. Is it here? Or is it here? That little sliver of green. With the rocks. 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 You know, I get in my head the video that's like Roxanne, but it's just rocks. Oh, that's on that hill. Yeah. That's on that hill. Oh. I was like, oh, this is an interesting location. Yeah, no, I know where it is. Boink. Yeah. So, yeah. The workers are doing great things. There's been some pretty minor progress that everybody's skeptical of, but hopeful. A lot of the main figures in the controversy were fired, or they were let go to pursue other opportunities. Yeah, okay. But as of right now, nobody's really eating up the Fall Guy act you know? Everybody knows that, like, for example, J. Allen Brack, he was, like, definitely not the worst offender in all of this. Like, he didn't do enough. So, you know, he definitely enabled this workplace environment. But also, he did eventually get Afrasiabi, like, out of there. So, he's, like, not really the name people have been rallying to fire. And very clearly, they just wanted somebody recognizable whose name was in the document to get out of their company so they wouldn't have the bad PR. But nobody's really buying it. My question is, what bridge exactly is this? That? Nah. There's like a cute little statue there. Is that this? That cute little statue? Ah, it sure is. So, yeah, a lot of the names and faces that were attached to this behavior and the resulting events that happened. Just like I guess it's a little late in the video after I told you to research it yourself, but like content warning if you choose to like go into that. Like if you're triggered by like sexual harassment and assault, or like somebody taking their own life, then you should be careful. Because I'm telling you, the shit in that document is horrific. And I'm really glad that people aren't letting it go as easily as they usually do for Blizzard controversies. Oh, whatever. Fucking hate the Timeless Isle. This is Muradin. Can't fool me. I'm the gingerbread man. But the question that a lot of people are kind of asking themselves and others, there are a couple of questions. This is Ashran. They're not pulling the wool over my eyes again. Ooh, that's the smallest circle I've ever seen. Maybe I should have been a little more careful. I mean, I got it right, but oof, that was a close one. So, the questions a lot of people are asking are, A, should I keep playing WoW? And B, should other people keep playing WoW? Which, you know, a lot of people get these visceral gut reaction kind of feelings about questions like that. They feel it's either, you know, people's opinions to them are either too cavalier or too judgy for their liking. I try to avoid those kind of assumptions. I'm not always successful, but I try. And I believe, as a result, that there's no easy or correct answer here. There are only a couple of immutable truths that one should consider when they ask themselves whether they want to continue supporting the game or not. One of those things is that by leaving the World of Warcraft community, that's one less voice that's standing up for the workers in the player base. Additionally, the people who are fighting against these, like, horrible workplace conditions are being paid by the company, unfortunately. And so when you boycott their product, the people that are more likely to be discriminated against are probably going to get axed before the people you want to get fired. And so there's a sort of hostage situation there as well. Now, if you... Well, we're not done with the list of facts, so... yeah, there are people both on the team and in the player base that are fighting for a better game and a better workplace for these people. And so cutting yourself off from the community as a whole would not help them. It would hurt Activision Blizzard for about $10 a month, but that would be $10 less in their pocket every month. But in terms of actionable change, it's kind of a drop in the bucket, unfortunately, and that's just how it is. So one's decision making, if it's centered around activism and what you can do, then that's important to consider. Additionally, it's important to remember that... Yo, what the fuck? I just forgot. Hold on. I remembered it. So, on the other side of that argument, where, you know, completely abandoning World of Warcraft won't make World of Warcraft better. Kind of punitive measures will only result in my opinion, the wrong actions being taken by the higher-ups in the company. However, you do also have to consider how much you want to support the company. Because if you're not going to cut yourself off cold turkey from all Activision Blizzard products, you have to consider that every dollar you give them is a dollar they can use to silence these voices that you support, and that can be used to actively try and prevent organization within their ranks. So while you may not quit your World of Warcraft subscription or the game or the community as a whole, you might want to consider, cutting down and being mindful of what products you purchase and with what frequency. Like, for example, the new Diablo 2 remake that's coming out. Remaster, I guess. They never claimed to remake it. It's not a Warcraft 3 Reforged kind of deal, where they claimed to remake it, but then they remastered it, and it was, weird. Anyway, I don't think the Diablo IP deserves to flop because the company is bad. Because the way companies think is deranged and psychopathic. They consider everything to be about the bottom line. So if something isn't making them money, they drop it like it meant nothing to them. And so one needs to both support what they love and cut down from the things that they do not. For instance, I don't play a lot of Activision games. If I ever was considering it, I won't now, because I don't have an emotional attachment to those things yet. And so, testing them out and giving money to the company is irresponsible in my personal set of morals. However, I do love World of Warcraft. And I really genuinely considered just tossing it. I was on vacation with my family recently at the beach, and I genuinely was like, I had conversations with my dad about whether or not we should continue our subscription. And I was ready to abandon the game. I was like the thought of it was really tough, but like I in that moment felt like it was the only course of action that I could do that would feel correct. But he thankfully told me to think about it for a little bit, and now of course I believe differently because I've heard more perspectives and I've gotten more time to think about what World of Warcraft means to me and what World of Warcraft needs as a game. I hate this zone. Where is this? Oh. Thing about Outland is it's scary. I think it's here. Ooh, yeah, it's scary. So all of that babbling aside, you might be wondering what decision I've landed on. You probably have already guessed. Once again, Ashara thinks it's fucking slick. Maybe it is. No, it isn't. It'll never be slick. Slick like my... is going on YouTube. I shouldn't say such things impulsively. If you're curious about what I've decided to continue my subscription to the game, but limit my financial support of the company. And even if I do at some point decide to end my subscription for the game, like, to save my dad a bit of money every month for something that I'm not even playing, even if I do, I won't leave the community. I want to continue to be active in that way, because I think the World of Warcraft community is one of the worst on the planet, and it needs some voices of reason in it. It needs some loud voices of reason, because there are a ton of voices of reason in the community. They're just not as loud as the toxic ones. And I've honestly been both impressed and disgusted at the reverberating opinions through the community about all of this. Because on one hand, it has spurred coordination in the community that the likes of which I've never seen. Everybody, vocal in the community, was completely on the same page that this is horrific and it needs to end. A lot of voices did not hold that view, but they're not prominent voices in the community. There are a lot of differing opinions in the World of Warcraft community about game design that could get really nasty and genuinely can be unproductive at times. They can be so, personal. But, from Asmongold to Talius and Inevitel, nobody liked this shit. Like, nobody thought that this was an overreaction. This was like a lawsuit by the state of California after a 2-year investigation. It's bullshit, you know? Like, that's like genuinely bad. Like, nobody can deny that. This isn't like, you know, like a Twitter thread that like you kind of have to take with a grain of salt. Which, like, obviously in a perfect world, you would always believe survivors of abuse. And I think you should err on the side of belief. Because, like, yeah, it's worse to sort of, like, be a dick to somebody who doesn't deserve it than to, like, potentially abandon someone who really needs your help. I will say, though, specifically in online spaces, it's very risky to trust people immediately on any topic, let alone something as serious as this. So my suggestion to anybody out there is to not be skeptical, but hold off on passionate involvement until, you know, you get something solid, or if this is someone you really trust, you know? Because there are a lot of people who just... The cases of women faking this shit are so small. There's, like, such a small number of them. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And it's actually, things like this have happened to people that have been very close to me. So, and I'm not talking like women like accusing them of sexual assault. I'm talking like, you know, people accusing of something that either didn't happen or was distorted, and then, you know, that follows them for the rest of their life. It's a very terrible thing, but it's even worse if it's true, you know? So your gut reaction can't be to defend the people who are being accused or to defend the people who are accusing. It has to be like, hey, if that's true, that sucks. Like, let me know how I can help. Like, at the end of the day, you have to approach it from an angle of how can you help the best? Clearly someone feels that they were wronged, you know, and unless they're intentionally and maliciously playing victim when nothing happened, which is rare, I'll tell you, it's rare, but it exists. But, like, unless something just evil is like that happening, then in a lot of cases, it's like the responsible thing to do to find out, you know, what can be done to settle this, both between the accuser and the accused. What led to it becoming a public thing rather than, you know, just between them. Because that's often what happens with actual miscommunications where someone gets hurt, is people, adults, talk about it, you know? And so usually when it goes public like this, it's bad enough that you should err on the side of like, wow, what happened to make them get the public involved, you know? And of course, I'm mansplaining sexual assault to you guys, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying, where if you approach something from the angle of immediate distrust or disgust of one side or the other, unless it's like, you know, fucking obvious, like there's just like, they're like, here's a text where they say terrible things to me. Like, I guess even that can be like some kinky shit taken out of context, but you know what I mean, right? Like, unless it's like 100% like, wow, this shit sucks, then you should approach it with from like a careful attitude that wants to help. And I think if you do that, then it will be fine. And miscommunications and mistakes like so often happen will be avoided just from that mindset. So where the hell? There you are. So yeah, a lot of people are on the same page about this. You know, even people who are completely entitled and like terrible to the devs, at least in the beginning of this whole shitstorm, they were supporting the devs. Since then, you know, you can't polish a piece of shit. So a lot of people have been lashing out at the developers because they said mean things about the community. And it's like, well, the harsh truth of it is that we have been contributing to that kind of thing. If the World of Warcraft team hires people from the community to work on their game, then the community is not separated from this issue. You know? It like, we're involved whether we want to be or not. And I know for a fact that there have been times in the game where, you know, I wasn't actively participating in anything like some like group harassment of a woman or anything like that. But like, I know for a fact that in my time from like being a preteen to now as an adult, there have definitely been incidents where someone was saying some uncool shit and I either like didn't say anything or like had the wrong response, you know? Because like, you know, I was a child. But where is this? I know where this is, but like, where is this? Where is this? It's like here. Good enough. I'll take a neutral. So yeah, a couple of the devs have been accusing is such an incendiary word. They've been bringing up the fact that, you know, the community isn't infallible and the customer isn't always right. And sometimes the customer contributes to these things and the community response to that has been exactly what you would expect. They immediately proved them correct and started harassing them about it. And this is where the Asmongold's and the Taliesin's sort of diverge. Because, you know, Asmongold often takes the side of the player first perspective, where he's like, hey, they're being dicks about it, but they have a point. Whereas, you know, Taliesin very vehemently is like, hey, that shit's never okay. Fuck you. You know? So Bradley wasn't paying attention. Oh, but I know this one. So, yeah. And this isn't me, like, shilling for whatever content creator I prefer. Like, Asmongold has genuinely left me, like, kind of impressed with some of the things that he said, and then immediately left me disappointed afterwards. So, it's not a black and white deal. I was going back and forth whether I hate the guy or respect him. Which, he's kind of emblematic of the World of Warcraft community in that way. Where it's like, yeah, if I don't know. Sometimes you love it, sometimes you hate it. And Taliesin's similar. Like, you know, I usually think he's correct, but he also very much he errs on the side of this game is really good, which sometimes just is not the case. And I'll defend the devs on a lot of things, but sometimes I will not. Sometimes that's just not correct for me to believe I should do. Where is this? Where is this? There's 2 tents. And a road. 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 I don't think it's this. This is like a dig site. Where is it? Where is it? But anyway, yeah, my hot takes about Twitch streamers and content creators is not really what I was getting at to begin with. Where could it possibly be? Like, what could it mean? What's over this ridge? Over here. That's a tree. And this is like clearly the border between Scary Place and another region. So it's either here or one of these. I don't know about that. This chicken bullshit and these spiders. I think this is Searing Gorge. I believe I recognize this to be Searing Gorge. I think right behind this hill is Blackrock Mountain. What I just don't get is why the tents do show up on the map, but I don't see the tents anywhere that they would be. Fucks up with that, you know? I think it's here. God damn it is. Anyway. Yeah, I think at this point, nobody should give up on the game. But there need to be some serious talks about the state the game and the company that creates the game is in. And whether that's enough for you to suspend your subscription or even cancel it forever, that's up to you. But it won't make the game better. Abandoning the game won't make it better, and supporting the game won't make it better either. Or no, supporting the game will make it better. Supporting the company will not make working conditions better. So you have to walk that tightrope of whether you want to empower an abusive workplace or disempower a struggling game. And I think that's really all I have to say on that issue. A couple of prominent people have quit WoW lately, actually. Who's that guy? Prominent people. I can't even remember his damn name. Preach quit recently. And he was like a very prominent voice. And Mad Season show. I think Mad Season, but I think his channel name is Mad Season Show or something. Anyway, he left and that hurt. That one hurt because he left for the reasons that I've been considering leaving. Like, gameplay-wise, I mean, you know. One can make the argument that it's very selfish and entitled to focus on the gameplay flaws of World of Warcraft during all of this. But I disagree on that because while I disagree on Asmongold on many things, he did have a point when he said, like, do you think that under these working conditions people can make a good game? Because the fact of the matter is they can't. A lot of the workload is being put on a very small percentage of the workforce that clearly are very passionate about the game, but, you know, that's not uniform throughout the company. Where a lot of senior male staff seem to consider themselves more important than the game that they're working on, which is fair until it gets into the point where they think that they're better than other people whom they throw all their responsibilities onto because they don't want to work a day in their life. But besides all that, you know, I don't think an irrelevant thing to bring up that solving this workplace, like these terrible workplace conditions, solving them would result in a better game for everybody, including the workers. And I think that's something that we should really strive for, rather than, you know, be like, why are you bringing that up right now? Well, because this is a video game, and video games are impacted by real life, and real life is impacted by the video game. It's not exactly an equal relationship, you know, they don't impact each other the same way, but you know what I mean, right? The video game does not exist in a vacuum, and neither do the people working on the game. And you can see sort of like the stain that's been left on the game from this kind of work environment. There's a lot of rushed content there's a lot of scrapped content. There's a lot of sort of beliefs that have filtered into the game's writing, which the writing team is like 50% women, I will say. But there are some worrisome trends in the game where it's like, you know, there's like a couple of like immature type jokes and ideas and concepts and shit in the game. It's a huge game. Of course that's going to happen. And I think those should be changed maybe. Yeah, but they're not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about more thematic shit. Like the tendency for the story to something really wrong to happen to a woman, and then for her to go crazy and go hell-bent on villain-esque revenge, and then at the end of the day she learns that she should forgive instead of being mad. And this has happened with 3 prominent characters, and it may continue to happen, much to my dismay. You know, one could argue that the entire Sylvanas arc is leading up to that point. Which, y'all know I got opinions on Sylvanas, and both sides of the argument probably would get annoyed at me for saying it, because I love Sylvanas, but man, sometimes the story's bullshit. Recently, Tyrande really got a full face of that treatment. Wasn't too great, in my opinion. Because Tyrande has always been vengeful and cutthroat. But that doesn't mean that she isn't kind and nurturing, either. She's nurturing in the same way that, like, a stern mother is, you know? Like, she is a figure in the world that people fear and respect, but that doesn't mean that she's mindless and that she does violence for violence sake, nor does that mean she believes violence is the only option. And ever since BFA, Tyrande has been rightfully on the fucking warpath about, you know, big tree genocide. Everybody talks about it, you know what I mean. Unless you don't play this game, in which case, there was a big tree genocide. That's pretty much it. What is this? 1, 2, 3. I think it's you. Oh. Give me that yellow. And so, yeah, Tyrande's rightfully mad about that. And then recently, she is given this ultimatum of you must choose vengeance or renewal. And it's acting like there isn't an option to pursue both, which in layman's terms is called justice. You know, you can be mad about this kind of shit, you know? And you know what? You can be vengeful about this kind of shit. Of course, if they wanted to make a character, you know, go on the warpath and then at the very last moment back out because they just can't go through with it, that's fine. They did that. They did that with Jaina very poorly, but hey, it made sense for her character at least to back out. Didn't make sense for her to go crazy anti-horde for like 5 years either, but made sense for her to be fucking mad because, hey, they bombed her town and everybody died. So yeah, I think normal people would be a little peeved about that. But, you know, she's a peacebringer at heart. And so eventually she decided to work towards peace again rather than work towards revenge for what happened. And that makes sense. What doesn't make sense is this decision for Tyrande. Because Tyrande has been a bad bitch since day fucking one. And if you're going to tell me that at the last minute she couldn't bring herself to kill Sylvanas Windrunner, then you're full of it. You don't know who Tyrande is. It's like, she kills people all the time for much less than genocide, you know? Historically, she's like the hard ass that you're like a little afraid of when it paired between her and Malfurion. Like, Malfurion's just like this old guy. They're both terrifying in their own right, but like, you know what I mean? Like, she's the muscle here. And she always has been. And they're acting like she hasn't always been that way. And I think that's very misguided of them. I do like the idea of choosing peace over war. Of course I love that idea. I'm such a sucker for like shonen anime and like Steven Universe type shit. Like, I love it. I love it. But this character arc really did not get a chance to breathe or room to grow. And it really shows. Because Tyrande has only just started, you know, questioning whether vengeance is the only path for her. Like, and even then just barely. Like, the hints of her potentially questioning it have just been sown. And then all of a sudden she's like, I think I'm over it. Like, it's funny. It's funny, and that kind of heavy topic shouldn't be funny. I hear the argument made a lot that World of Warcraft should not be the medium in which one tells stories about heavy topics such as prejudice and genocide. And I can understand that, of course. But I think the stories told through the game benefit a lot more from not shying away from those kind of things. I think that we would get a World of Marvel game. I think it would all be like very shallow, superhero-y end of the world shit if we didn't at least try and raise a discussion about the consequences of war. Like, it doesn't have to be fucking, like, a beautiful, like, it doesn't have to, like, change your life or anything, but I think that, like, as somebody who likes to write, I would feel that the project wouldn't be worth working on if I wasn't allowed to breach topics that might be a little, like, real, you know? It's like I said, the game does not exist in a vacuum. It is influenced by the real world, and vice versa. Games and the stories told within can personally impact people on that level. And I don't think that should be downplayed, the, like, profundity of it. We got 2 islands. We got 2 islands. I think it's like that, yeah. But I also don't think that we should, you know, make light of such things. Call of Duty is a perfect example. Call of Duty is a propaganda machine. And even if it didn't start off with the intent to be that, you know, it now makes light of things that are very bad. Like, certain weapons of war are, like, tossed around like they're nothing in the game. The recent games, I mean. That weapons of war that are considered to be war crimes. And they're just like, isn't this a fun weapon, It's weird. It's like Fallout, How Fallout's like, isn't it so epic bacon awesome to throw nukes around and be the fucking that robot suit that loves America? Don't you love that? Isn't that fucking funny and epic? And it's like, the original Fallout was like about the atrocities of war. Literally the fucking like war never changes speech, Even as recently as Fallout 3, which wasn't great, but like it wasn't Fallout 4. I'll give it that. So it's stuff like that where it's like you really have to give these topics the respect they deserve, but you can't shy away from them, in my opinion, in order to make a worthwhile expression of art. And making a worthwhile expression of art doesn't always have to be the goal. But in my opinion, it's kind of demeaning to act like that should never be the goal. I think that's very childish. So like here. Yeah. It's like a childish way to view media. It's very much ostrich in the sand kind of deal. Oh, no, not this place. Oh, no, not this place. This is in the Badlands. I was gonna say I forget where it is. This is in the Badlands. Whew. That one's always tough. If you don't remember it immediately like I just did. Well, I know who you are. I never was able to finish this quest. The fucking Plants vs. Zombies quest. I could never beat it as a kid. And honestly, as an adult, I really don't want to invest the time to try. Yeah, that pet is simply not in my possession. So while we keep going, I guess since we're done talking about the controversy, I can just generally, vaguely talk about how I'm feeling about the game nowadays. As you know, not great, and that's besides the whole lawsuit thing, as I've mentioned. It's just my relationship with how I feel playing the game actively sucks right now. I hate playing the game. I love thinking about the game and learning more about the world, and like, even recently, I'm like, I kind of want to buy one of those new lore books that just dropped. Like the Grimoire of the Shadowlands and the fucking Exploring Azeroth Kalimdor, I think. Like, stuff like that I'm all the way into. But playing the game sucks really bad right now. I just spilled water on my nipple. Don't worry about it. It's hot in my room right now. It's fine. I used to be pretty staunchly against the idea that gameplay is even 50% of the reason why somebody should play a game. Like, I used to be firmly in the camp that a game can be total dog shit and still be worth playing because of other factors. And I still believe that to an extent. However, World of Warcraft is in such a state right now that is becoming increasingly hard for me to stand by this opinion in every case. I think that the gameplay systems that are in, and the design philosophy in general that World of Warcraft is operating under is detrimental to the game and all of the things that one could love about the game besides gameplay. Which is, world building, creative freedom from the devs, writing, like, roleplay, all of the aspects that aren't just pressing button is fun for me, all of the non-competitive, gameplay aspects of the game, like even collecting rare items and pets and mounts and shit is impacted because in order to get a lot of them, there's a lot of bullshit you have to get between. And I think the source of this problem is, like I said, the philosophy itself that the game is being developed under. Initially, in Classic WoW, they developed that as a full experience start to finish. There was a very heavy emphasis on making sure the world was a place you spent a lot of time in, and that you spent a lot of time, actively leveling up and getting better, both at being able to play your character and getting better just numbers-wise, like RPG shit. And that kind of time investment for personal reward was what the game was sort of built around at first. And the story wasn't much in Classic, obviously, but there were a lot of interesting story threads to follow throughout several zones that eventually culminated into the end raids. And even if they didn't culminate in a raid, they culminated in some cool quest, I think that sort of style worked a lot better for World of Warcraft than what's currently happening, which I'll get into now. The current philosophy is not focused on a start-to-finish experience. Right now, the focus on the gameplay is purely at the end game, when you're max level and you're at, the new current content. I would venture to say that one could argue this started in Burning Crusade, but I don't think it was, a problem until Cataclysm, where they streamlined the leveling process. Because nowadays, leveling is, a laughable concept. It's truly, genuinely as if the devs don't want you to play their game. They want you to play the end of their game, The focus is purely on max level. They don't update anything in the old world. They never will. And they don't make any new content for players that aren't max level. And that is MMO poison, basically. Where is this? It's here, right? Yeah. It's MMO poison, because then you have an entire empty, you have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 empty continents. And then one continent, the Shadowlands, where everybody is. That's not a healthy world. When it's a solo game up until max level, that's not healthy. And they only exacerbate this with, like microtransactions that incentivize you to just pay $60 for a level boost. I hate the level boost. I think it's absolutely like damaging the game because it enforces the idea that leveling is not something that is worth your time. And if you want to have any real fun, then you're going to want to boost as quickly as possible so that you can get to the real meat of the game, which is, of course, not how any of it works, So, on top of that, that kind of outlook really makes it hard for indirect storytelling to take place because the devs aren't focused on building a complex and lived-in world. They are focused on providing a linear narrative for you to experience over the course of an expansion. And this sort of started, again, you could argue it started with Burning Crusade, because there was like an overarching goal. But in its purest form, it started, once again, in Cataclysm, where everything revolved around that story. And there was no real departure from that which you could spend your time on. It's like, yeah, classic WoW is basically you being pulled around by the dick to the most disparate corners of the world to deliver some like shirt to some guy in another city, There's a lot of walking, there's a lot of downtime, there's a lot of empty space in the original game. That's not great. But in my opinion, it's better for an MMO because linear storytelling always feels contrived when it's in a game genre that's meant to be individual controlled, right? Like in the World of Warcraft, you're supposed to be whoever you want to be, and you can fucking, roleplay as your specific like fantasy hero that you want to be. Whereas as it kind of is, you're sort of shoehorned into this like reality saving like savior where you're just basically like a part of like the Azeroth military that they call you up every now and then. They're like, hey yo, a demon's here, and so you go kill the demon, and then they're like, hey yo, fucking alternative Draenor's like Thrall's dad is evil, we gotta stop him. So you go over and stop him, and it truly doesn't let the writers really think about the world in a way that isn't in service of the game. And I truly hate that. My most controversial take, that's a lie. I have a lot of controversial takes. One of my most controversial takes is I hate it when dungeons are good. Like, and I say that to be incendiary, obviously, but I much prefer the original version of the Sunken Temple to any dungeon from modern WoW. And like, yes, it was an inconvenient labyrinth of a place that was terrible to run dungeon groups through. It fucking sucked. But it didn't feel like it was specifically built for me to explore, And paradoxically, that made it feel like it was built for me to explore, because, like, I'm explaining it weird. It felt like it was a place in the world that existed whether I was there or not. You know? There was no, like, very obvious reason for me to want to go there, you know? All of that, there wasn't, like, a list of, like, incentives and key jangling for them to get me to go into the dungeon. There wasn't, like, a storyline that always drew me there. Sometimes it was just a place out in the middle of fucking nowhere. And, like, that never happens now. But those places out in the middle of nowhere that you just stumble upon, and then you're like, holy shit, this is like a, like, labyrinth of evil that I could delve into and explore and figure out what the hell's going on, you know? That was a story in and of itself. And the process of exploring those areas was rewarding, because it's fucking cool to go around and delve into the unknown corners of the world. That's just a fact. That's why games like Dark Souls are so appealing, to me at least, personally, because it doesn't feel like a world that was made for you. It just feels like a world, you know? Whereas, like, I go through a dungeon in the modern game, and I can tell that it was painstakingly designed for Mythic runs. And that's... I was going to say that's fine, but no. My whole point is that I don't like it. I don't think it's fine. Because not everything in a game has to be an esport. Like, it's okay for something to be even the slightest bit inconvenient for a player. And I think they're really scared of inconveniencing a player and then, you know, getting shit for it. I mean, the same fucking thing happened with Vashj'ir, right? People were like, oh, I don't like swimming instead of walking. And so they scrapped an entire fucking raid in one of the patches because they didn't want to piss people off even further. And also there was probably some behind the scenes, like, resource management shit, but, you know, I think a lot of it was like they just barely had the resources, and then everybody hated Vashj'ir, and so they were just like, these resources are better used to make Firelands cooler, and so they did that instead. But I hate that, because I love Vashj'ir, because it's unique and interesting, and again, it's a place that is designed to stand on its own, whether or not I'm there or not. And I think that's really world building 101 for an MMO. I think it's very important for an MMO to have a world that feels like it's a place rather than it feels like a practice in game design. What is this bullshit? What is this Mickey Mouse bullshit I see before my very eyes? There's like a Y with an extra fork. There's like a trident path. What in the goddamn? How the... Where is it? I'll say the fork goes to its own little stubby. So it's not... Where in the goddamn hell is this intersection? Bro. Big thing. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's over here. Oh my god. It's right there. Oh, fuck yeah. Also, hold on, I have to pause. Alright, I'm back. Sorry, I had to go to the bathroom and also respond to a text my sister sent me about dinner. So, anyway, yeah. As I was saying, there's like some dust on my cup. Hold on. Okay, professional. As I was saying, I think the game design philosophies of World of Warcraft have over time fallen into the same traps of many games that were would-be WoW killers that people just sort of got burnt out on and stopped playing. And I think the appeal of World of Warcraft has always been its open-ended nature and ease of access. But that doesn't mean that there can't be challenge in the game either. I think that they need to stop worrying about eliminating all balance issues. Because I don't think disparity equals balance issues. For example, the homogenization of every class, I think a lot of people can agree that was a bad direction to take the game. Because it lost an aspect of identity that people had grown to care about in regards to like their character and how their character interacted with the world. There's like no real use for like rogue lockpicking very much anymore. There's like no cool like hunter pet shit. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the aspects of classes that got removed were, either things that didn't need to be there in the first place and that were part of the same problem, even if it looks like it's a different problem. Because I think continuing to add a bunch of abilities to each class wasn't necessary, and that's why they pruned down so hard in from the Mists to Legion era. And I understand why they pruned down, because it was a homogenizing effect. But then they took away a lot of the individualized utility as well for each class, which is part of the same problem, the lack of class identity and the homogenization of each class. Right now, the difference between each class is there's basically 3 classes in WoW right now, and that's damage dealer, tank, and healer. And the only difference between, the actual quote-unquote class is the way in which you... Not even the way in which you do that, just the aesthetic difference of it. It's the same... You're pressing buttons to do damage or heal or tank aggro. And they might be in different orders, the actual button pressing might be shuffled around. You might have a different rotation, and classes might work differently in that kind of way. But that doesn't mean... I think that's here. That doesn't mean... Man, that fucking sucks. Could've sworn that big bitch, the pig with glowy, I could've sworn she was down there. Fuck, that's the porcupine area that I clicked. No! Oh man, that sucks. But just because a button rotation is different doesn't mean that class identity has been achieved, you know? They still lack that roleplay element that isn't necessarily efficient for gameplay, but is very much needed. I think actually, out of all the classes, Hunter is one of them that got out the least unscathed, and they got pruned a lot. Like, for instance, Farsight. It's not called Farsight. What is this? Eagle Eye. Eagle Eye never left as a spell. It might have, but it came back. I don't remember. Spells like Eagle Eye or Play Dead or Disengage, you know, those are unique things to a hunter that makes playing a hunter feel different than other classes. Even among classes that have pets like warlocks and no other class. Maybe you count DK, but I don't. But fuck. I did bad this round. I want to keep talking, so we're going to play again. Hold on, actually. Let me... Oof, the video's so long. Shit. I should end the video, but I want to keep talking. YouTuber's dilemma. We can go for a little bit longer. No, we shouldn't. My thoughts can be summed up with... I don't know. Can they be summed up? I need to really think on this. Hold on. Basically what I was getting to... I remembered my main point before I went off on the class homogenization tangent. I think the World of Warcraft developers are really scared of inconveniencing the player, and I think that in doing so, they have made the game less unique and less interesting. As I said, Classic is basically you getting tugged around by the balls on a bunch of, like, uninteresting quests that are, like, all the same, but it's made interesting because the way you interact with the world is different from every other class, and the way the world interacts with you is also not guaranteed to be a necessarily predictable time. Unless, of course, you have the entire game memorized like I do. But most people don't. Most people are normal and well-adjusted. So, it, for me, was a very fascinating experience that I really truly fell in love with when I was exploring and discovering things in this game for the first time as, like, a 10-year-old, you know? But then, you know, in removing those in the name of balance or in trying to keep player engagement up, I think they're treating a symptom without treating the cause. And I think the source of those symptoms is, at this point in the game, the way they're treating the symptoms, if that makes sense. I don't think it's healthy for them to completely abandon leveling as a concept in their game. I really think that's, like, their biggest mistake, and I don't know how you can keep a game going if you don't respect it enough to put development time into the entire game, rather than just whatever, you know, the current bombastic world-ending Marvel movie of a threat is, and then the next expansion, it all gets erased, you know? That's a problem that's as old as time, where you went through the dark portal into the Burning Crusade in Outland, and instantly your like top tier raiding gear was replaced with like shitty green items, you know? And instead of trying to find a way to solve that problem, they just kind of leaned into it as the years have gone on. And I think it's a very deeply rooted source of a lot of design problems in the game. And if you really like think about it, a lot of the talked about issues in the game can be traced back to that. The fact that there's so many end game systems that they heap onto you, and then, you know, by the next patch they're irrelevant. That's all out of a misguided attempt to keep player engagement up, because they're focusing entirely on the end game when the game wasn't designed around that. So they have to make up new shit every expansion. Not even every expansion, every patch. And that's like very clearly an unsustainable and stressful job for the devs to do. They're constantly at war with the player base, trying to convince them that these systems are fun, when they might be, but the game can't ride entirely on those systems. And no matter how many systems you create, and trust me, they're trying to go for a record in Shadowlands, no matter how many you create, or how good they are, or how well balanced they are, man, I'm starting to hate the idea of balance in my own, like, talk. It definitely exists. There needs to be, like, fairness among classes and players in general, not just classes, actually. I think it's dumbing down the issue to just refer to it only in context of, like, spells and abilities. I think balance issues are just how to equalize the player base as a whole. And I think that's a worthy endeavor, but it should not be the primary focus unless it's like a really outstanding issue, you know? Like, unless somebody's exploiting a difference and being really, like, bullshit about it and, like, undermining the spirit of the game that you're making, then I don't think it needs to be fixed if something's, like, a little inconvenient. But even beyond all that, you know, the player homogenization is a part of it, because they want to streamline everything so that people get to the end game faster, and so that people don't have to learn as much to get to the end game, so that they can, you know, experience, quote unquote, the real content, which, you know, by next expansion will be outdated and nobody will ever play it again. The story being so linear and cinematic focused, I love the cinematics of this game. I think they're relied on way too heavily in storytelling. You've heard me compare it to a Marvel movie, and that's really what it's become. It's just a cast of characters that get thrown into a world-ending scenario over and over again, and no matter how interesting those characters have been or are, it always results in a very safe kind of story that is a little bit predictable. Everybody knew how BFA was going to end. Everybody knew. But they still tried to pass it off like we wouldn't know. And, you know, that's not really a twist. That's a boring story at that point, because they didn't really thematically lead up to it, so it wasn't satisfying as a narrative, and it wasn't surprising as a narrative either. You know, you don't have to have both of those things, but you really should have at least one. So the storytelling's impacted by this design issue. The world building is impacted. The world itself and the design of the areas is so impacted. I hate exploring in, like, new WoW zones. That used to be all I did when I started playing WoW. I took my dad's character and I would, like run my ass from Elwyn Forest to, like, fucking Eastern Plaguelands, you know? Like, I would explore every nook and cranny of every zone all across the world because I was so interested in the history and current events of each of these places. And like, I wanted to find out more about the world and see more of it. And nowadays, I feel like I'm wading through a swamp of low-level bullshit. Like, I know I can kill these guys, but I keep getting knocked off of my mount because there's so fucking many of them in the zone. And this has probably been an issue for a while, but I honestly started feeling it in Legion. Legion felt very cramped to me. And this, I think, came from an attempt of the world building team to put more interesting things into, the same amount of space that they were going to make the zones anyway. But it really makes it stressful to try and, like, Argus in particular was really bad. Argus is just like, I love Argus, but traveling in Argus is a nightmare, and you're wading through demons at every step of the way. And you know what? That's thematically relevant for Argus. But I feel the same way in every Shadowlands and BFA zone, so something tells me it's about the design, not about you invading an alien homeworld and them trying to stop you, I don't think the narrative was considered when they were designing it like that. Maybe it was. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I think you understand what I'm getting at. And the irrelevance of professions can be traced back to it because they're so focused on trying to fix the systems that are doomed to fail in the beginning because they're not, like, they're supporting a game that hasn't been supported by its own developers for years now. They're propping it up when, the game at its core needs attention and development time. And so obviously these systems are going to fall flat and or become a shit show in the community because they're being used as a band-aid for a much bigger problem. And development time is focused solely on trying to get these systems working and solely on trying to get everybody on the same page balance-wise and solely focused on end game content and the top 0.1% of raiding guilds trying to tune so that they don't demolish the raids the instant they walk in. And they're doing great with the raids, by the way. The raids are really good. They have been good. They've been outstanding, in my opinion, since Warlords of Draenor. And they've always been good. But I only noticed it in Warlords of Draenor. I was like, wow, damn, this expansion sucks, but fuck, Blackhand Fight is pretty fucking awesome. Like, I think the difficulty curve of raids is something that they're getting very good at. I also think some design decisions are made with the assumption that eventually everybody will be beating the final boss on Mythic difficulty, and I think that's flawed. I don't think I should be able to raid on Mythic difficulty and succeed. I think Mythic, or maybe even a new one above Mythic, but I don't think that's very necessary. I think that the highest difficulty of raiding should be for, like, the highest, like, skill tier of players, where you have a group that you're super coordinated with, and everybody knows how to play their class to the best of their ability, I think that kind of shit, that's, like, Mythic rating should be, like, hard fucking core. Heroic rating, I think that's something that should be more accessible. I think that's something that, I can get together with one of my like, guilds, or just, like, a random group of people, and, it won't be easy, but we'll do our best and be able to do it. Um, I think normal and heroic, should be accessible, but then heroic should be accessible but difficult. And I think mythic should just be difficult. Because I like the idea of something just being like balls to the wall hard. Because like, I'm not missing out on anything by not doing the hardest difficulty. Now, sometimes they try to do these like weird mythic incentives where it's like a special mount you can only get on mythic difficulty. They love doing that. I don't like that. I think that that's not really rewarding top tier players so much as breeding resentment in the community and encouraging the superiority complex that a lot of players have. And like, I don't know, feels kind of slimy to have part of the economy be people getting walked through raids without having to do any work because they have a lot of gold, It's especially slimy when you can purchase gold with WoW tokens with real money, I don't think that's intentional, though. I think the gold inflation via WoW tokens is very much something they're enabling, but I'm talking about like specifically for like guided raid groups. I don't think they're specifically thinking of that. They're like, let's wring some money out of them, so they have to pay gold to get the new mount. Like, I don't know about that. But that is what's happening, and I don't think that's a very great part of the game. I think mythic difficulty should just be for the fucking glory. And for better gear. But I don't think that better gear should be what they tune around, for the next raid tier. Like, because I think it should be very difficult to get that gear, because mythic raiding would be very difficult in my ideal world. And then, the people who use it to raid the next mythic difficulty raid will have a better time because of it. And everybody else, if they're able to down a couple of mythic bosses, then they'll get something out of it, but there's no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that they'll get pissed off about not being able to achieve in time because they take it away. Such as all of the ahead of the curve mounts. I just think that's a system that feels bad, in my opinion. It's stressful for me to engage in it, and it's stressful for me to not engage in it. You're either missing out, or you're going to miss out because you're not good enough. Like, mythic rating should be for the glory. It should be for awesome moments, like in the Race to World First recently for the Sanctum of Domination, when they got Sylvanas down to 50%, which is usually when the fight ends. But then the fight kept going, and they realized that on mythic difficulty, she has to go down to 45% for the encounter to end. And moments like that are fucking awesome. And I really think mythic difficulty should be like about that kind of like pure struggle of a group against immeasurable but possible odds. Like, old Naxxramas, or like Ankh-Iraj before Cthulhu was nerfed. Shit like that, where it's like it sort of creates a community story in addition to the in-game story. That's what I think the higher echelons of difficulty should be about. And then, yeah, I'm not a person that hates LFR. I might hate doing it because people can't work together for shit, but like, I don't care. I think it's fine that there's like a casual mode for raiding, but I don't think that should be the only way that raiding can be engaged in, Something really can be both easy and hard if you just give players the option to choose what they want. Because, like, nobody's going to choose LFR for the gear. You know? Like, LFR gear is so bad that sometimes you get better gear doing other shit, and, like, then you go to LFR and you're like, wow, all of this is downgrades, you know? LFR should purely just be for players who want to experience the raid and have fun with it, but don't want the pressure of, like, needing to get all the good gear or needing high level of skill and coordination. Like, LFR is just pure cash. Let's just fucking go through this place and have a good time. Normal is like, yeah, I want the standard, like, experience of, like, you know, delving into a place with my homies and getting some cool shit from it. Heroic is like, we've already done that and we want a challenge. Mythic, I want to fucking be a legend, you know? Mythic should be mythic, in my opinion. And right now it just sort of feels like new heroic, you know? Just something that's like it feels unattainable for some players, but everybody acts like it's very attainable, and they're like, well, yeah, well, this raid was way too easy. They beat it within one reset. Like, you know, like, just... It all comes back to the design philosophy in the game. It comes back to the attitude of the players. And those two things feed into each other. You know, there's a reason the devs thought that streamlining everything would make the players happy. And that's because the players were shouting for it for years. And then when they got it, they got pissed off because it sucked. And they didn't make the connection that this was what they've been wanting and demanding for years. So then they're like, oh, Blizz hates players. It's like, well, I don't know about them, but I sure do. You either want everything to be so hardcore, casuals get out, or you know, want to be catered to every second of every day. And a lot of times, those two demands are shouted by the same person. And it really speaks to a level of immaturity in the fan base, in my opinion. But I suppose I've said a lot, and there's, like, not much going on the screen because, yeah, I think it's time for me to end the video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you had a good time just listening to me be very opinionated about things. And sorry, I moused over OBS there. I just realized that you can, like, see that on the screen. And as usual, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.